I don't like the idea that everything is done by something.
Because I think it just takes the personal touch out of cooking.
He could take it from me, yes, this is okay.
It's just something I can't really imagine because, in fact, I really like cleaning.
3D printed food. Wow.
What's that about? Just literally...
Sounds a little bit scary.
Yeah. Probably yes, I think yes.
Yeah, because that kind of happens now anyway.
I'm wearing a band and it tells me my blood pressure and heart rate and stuff like that, and the number of steps that you do. I don't know, I'm quite wary of artificial intelligence still. I'm not quite, because you don't really know how it's calculating.
I think all those things and new technology will have a chip, and that means everybody knows everything about everybody.
Maybe you'd feel more comfortable if it was friends or family or somebody that had been through the experience and seen the benefit of it. You might trust it more.
In the last 70 years we invented so much, we never believed that we invent so much things, so we have to make these risks to go further on.
Thank you. Great. I like that. There's always somebody who's going to say about the chip, isn't there? That's one of the biggest fears is the chip. So we have our chairs. Thank you, sir. I'd like you, please, now to give a very, very warm welcome to our 4 panelists. In no particular order, I'm going to first invite Professor Saftey Creese to the stage. You may come here. You may give her a round of applause, please. If you take a seat next to me. Yes, wherever you like. She's Professor of Cybersecurity in the Department of Computer Science at the University of Oxford, and she's also, if I'm correct, a member of the panel commissioned by the UK government's Chief Scientific Advisor to review the threats posed by the Internet of Things. Okay, so we've also got Mary-Jo de Leeuw. Mary-Jo de Leeuw. Okay, my terrible pronunciation. You may give her a round of applause. She is... partner at consulting firm Revnext. She's founder of Women in Cybersecurity Foundation and the Dutch think tank Internet of Toys, where scientists, manufacturers and members of the Dutch Parliament meet to discuss all sorts of things, including legislation, privacy breaches, and all sorts of things around toys. You can tell us more. Also very, very delighted to welcome, please, Nuria Oliver, who's PhD, yes, you may give a round of applause, PhD Director of Data Science Research at Vodafone, and Chief Data Scientist at Data Pop Alliance, which is a global coalition on big data and development created by the Harvard Humanitarian Initiative, MIT Media Lab, and Overseas Development Institute. Phew, that was a lot to say in a very short time there. And also, very delighted to have from the European Commission, Despina Spanou. Please give a very warm round of applause. You can sit at the end. Who is PhD Director for Digital Society Trust and Cybersecurity. So you can see there's a thread here, Cybersecurity at DG Connect, the European Commission. And I'm just pulling something off the website because it's the easiest, because amongst other things, the Director's mission, as I understand it, focuses on improving the life of citizens, which is a little bit what I've tried to pull out of the last chat, opportunities for companies and the quality of public administrations in major areas of society and economy. So, ladies, we have about 45 minutes, okay, 45 minutes to cover some pretty large terrain. Okay, just to kick us off, very simply, most simple, of everything we've heard from the professor to Joachim to what we've heard on the last panel, innovators, anything that particularly stood out for you, that resonated, and anything you think, hang on a second, we've completely missed that. Your 3 minutes start now.
All right. So I think many things resonated for me. I really enjoyed Professor's talk, and I share a lot of his views on what he has said. But I would just point out 2 sort of like things that stood out for me from the innovators' presentations. The first one is that independently of the area where they are working on, they are all generating massive amounts of data. And if we want to make use of that data and really leverage it and actually use it to make better decisions or to improve, we're going to need artificial intelligence, which is my field. So I was like, excellent. And the second part is I really like the sentence from Tim on like limitless human connections, because I've been working for telcos for 10 years now, and we do limitless human connections because we connect people globally. So I think the breaking of the barriers between the physical and the digital world, it is happening, and being able to connect with people both digitally and physically almost instantaneously could be really revolutionary. So I really like that.
Would you test it out? You're going to do it in what, 4 years? I think you're going to be, isn't it 4 years the time when you're going to get a prototype in place, or am I incorrectly informed?
Between now and 4 years.
Between now and 4 years. So when could she actually test going in it, do you think?
We aim to have that between 2023 and 2026.
Okay, very good. You need to sign him up. He's going to email you then, or something. He's going to brain transfer you by then. Okay, thank you. So you're delighted to see the leveraging of data for good use and this limitless human connections with both physical and digital. So what about you, Mary-Jo? What did you hear and what did you not hear?
Well, first of all, every party has someone who's going to spoil it. I think I'm going to be the one. So the thing I'm missing is the innovation involves risk. I didn't hear a lot about the risk. So I like the Hyperloop. I really love 3D footprinting, but I'm concerned about the risk because I hear all the glorious stories about great successes, but since I'm a doom tanker, I'm curious about the risk of the Hyperloop or 3D printing or whatever. And also in my platform, Internet of Toys, I know for sure everything can be broken. Everything has certain points where the risk will be a massive problem. So the one thing I miss is, let's address the risks.
Okay. So for example, when I was speaking, we were looking at the brain project, he was saying, we had to look a lot because we're talking brain cells. So I said, you kind of opened a Pandora's box, my goodness me. And I did ask, and I said to Tim, have you engaged? And were you not convinced when he said, listen, we have got this guy, you've got this guy who was in aviation, who was in, who's looking at that, and obviously, so where are you? You think, there's all there, and the public are going to go, woohoo, but.
Yeah, I live by 2 rules. Like, first rule is never trust anyone, and the second rule...
have you got any friends?
I told you, I'm going to spoil the party, yeah. So the second rule is, there's a risk at every innovation, so bring on the risk, yeah.
Okay, so there needs to be, okay. All right, we'll park that for a minute. Yes, Sadie, so what did you hear and not hear?
Well, I guess my starting position must be similar to Mary-Jo, and the best way I'd phrase it is I sit there and by the way, I'm a technology enthusiast. Okay. So I'm a computer scientist, philosopher who became a security person. But I always sit there and think, cool, how could I hack that? So to give you some ideas as to how I'd be thinking about that, I would be thinking, okay, so we're going to put things on our brains and they're going to measure our level of consciousness. I can see that would be really useful, and I mean that. But equally, it's the operational context within which you use things really matters. So, for example, if we really were to use that technology to determine whether their life support machine should stay on or go off, or if we really were going to use that to determine when the legal limit to end life should or should not be, or any of those scenarios which have all of these ethical issues surrounding them, then we really wouldn't want someone to be able to hack in and actually give you the wrong result. So persuade the system that you have below the level of consciousness, or vice versa. If we're going to print our food off, which is hugely exciting, I'm a runner when I find time, and if you run a lot, you have to take a lot of supplements, as we all know. But what if I knew that somebody had an allergy that would push them into a state of shock where they could lose their life? That's like the ultimate targeting poisoning machine. We've moved on from I've got to slide up to you in a cafe and put some kind of nuclear atomic piece into your drinks, and now I can just hack into your kitchen and persuade you to eat something that will kill you. Fascinating. Okay. And the list goes on. But the point I wanted to make was this. No, I mean, that I'm a cybersecurity person, so you would imagine that that's how I think. But cybersecurity is important because it keeps us safe. I know people worry that it is in conflict with privacy, but security gives us privacy. It protects our new ideas from people that would nick them from us so that our companies can remain in the position in the marketplace, innovating, being creative. It's so important for all of these things. But in the big space, what's the aim? The aim is to minimize the harm from things going wrong, from malign intent, and to increase the well-being. And in the safety space, brilliant, but the safety space has always worked in benign environment, accidental failure. And the security space is concerned with malign environment. And so my big takeaway would be this. Please, we absolutely can do better when we are innovating and being creative. We can make it our responsibility to think about what the vulnerability space might be. Could we be creating a means to introduce risk? And what should we be doing to help people ensure that that doesn't happen? And that, I think, is a policy challenge.
Yeah, I was about to say to you, there's the policy issue. And just literally in a nutshell, when you were talking, first of all, about, sort of giving examples of hacking in, like an end-of-life scenario or an allergy, I was about, as you were talking about the sort of the possible, who decides the end of life, I was thinking, do you see, and perhaps it's a terribly simplistic question, do you see there being a hierarchy of risk? But then, of course, you went into the allergy, so I suppose for you, there isn't necessarily a hierarchy of risk. I mean, is this a very simplistic question, or I could ask the same to you? Or is it the same approach?
If we park risk and talk about harm, there certainly is a pyramid of harm that people deal with in the world, and loss of life is certainly up there, right? But it depends on your scale and your lens. If you're looking after your family, you have a certain set of harms. If you're representing your business or your bigger family, your friends, your locality, your cyber citizen space, your region, humanity, different harms coming into play.
Yeah. Thank you, and very, very clearly articulated. Anything you wanted to add there? You said, I don't think you are the one coming to the party, Pooh, and we it's very important. We don't want everybody
on the same page. So,
I think it's important to obviously take into account potential risks and safety, but every decision we make in life has risks. The fact that I walk here versus taking a car, versus taking a taxi, versus cycling, it all has risks. And I think the trade-off was the value that it's bringing to your life versus the risk that you're undertaking. And this we do on a daily basis all the time.
And who is responsible for that sort of, those value, making those value judgment? Is there a percentage between the government, the state being responsible, industry responsible, we being responsible?
Well, I think all the stakeholders have a level of responsibility depending on the use case. But what I want to mention is that we all take risks from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed. Risks is not something that is only in cyberspace or that is everywhere. So, and we are comfortable taking those risks. And I think, of course, it is fundamental to take into account risks and safety implications on new things that we are inventing. But I think there is this tension between doing things that no one has done before and maybe not even knowing or anticipating what the risks are, and then not doing anything at all because we are scared of taking risks, right? And I think the profile of an innovator, an entrepreneur, or even a researcher is a person who is more risk-prone or is more comfortable with risks than maybe the average of the population. But I don't think we will be able to progress as a society and to tackle the big challenges that we face if we are not willing to also undertake some risks, of course, taking all sorts of precautions. But as you very well know, it is almost impossible to anticipate every possible thing that could happen. So I think we need to accept that we will have to take some risks, that we will try to minimize those risks, but that risk is something that we are born, since the moment we are born, we are taking risks.
Okay, we will come back to this. I'm just going to, because I do want to open it up to the floor, and I do want to hear from you. So I guess I sort of look at you. One thing is you heard about, I mean, you know it all, sort of the EU front end, but I'd be interested to hear what for you resonated, what was missed, anything you want to add from you personally, not just sort of from an institutional point of view, and if you want to add a sentence on there between this here, feel free.
Thank you very much. So definitely I was very inspired by the professor, and the statement that innovation drives growth and productivity, and for the European Union, we actually make that our mantra because we invest a lot. You know, the European budget is a huge amount that goes to research exactly because we believe in driving innovation. And I think that the three entrepreneurs we had here, the three innovators, were a great example of how innovation can make our lives better, safer, etc. What I was missing when you were presenting your fantastic achievements was that in your selling points, you didn't sell security and you didn't sell privacy. And whereas I agree that there is risk everywhere, if we want uptake of our innovative society, we need trust from people. And I'm thankful that Joachim opened the evening with this word. He was the first one to say it, and then we missed it somewhere in the discussion. You were talking about the hierarchy. I'm responsible for connected cars, and I attended a fantastic discussion among ministers, which was only about ethics. And the famous question, you're going to hit a baby and you're going to hit a group of people, who do you choose, who chooses, how do you deal with artificial intelligence? And we can't just tell people, well, you know, there will be a risk and it will be one or the other. No. We need to accompany innovation with the right measures. And this is where government has a role, and I disagree with you that this is science, Katrina, all the thing about the Cybersecurity Act.
No, I did say politics. I was just paraphrasing Jennifer Aniston. Forgive me. It is.
I disagree because it is in fact a tool for everybody to engage under a set of standards and norms that ensure that the societal values that we live with are maintained in the digitally transformed society that we want to go to through innovation. And in fact, what would have been great tonight is to accompany the three projects with an innovative project that ensures security, that ensures privacy. And there are. You can use artificial intelligence for privacy and data protection. You can use it for better safety. We need to explain that. So I think what you need government for is to ensure a baseline scenario. So what does it mean, privacy? What does it mean, cybersecurity? Internet of Things. When you bring that food printer in your home, will I be safe? And for that, you need transparency. When you sell it, you will need to tell people that they will be equally safe. Just the fact that it is connected may make it even safer eventually. So transparency is very important, and you need a point of reference. And this is where regulation can help. Instead of stifling, in fact, it can help.
Do you think also it can help because sometimes, just to cut you, sorry to interrupt for a moment, that sometimes with any product or service, particularly with products, you've got a supply chain. So you might get somebody at the front end saying, I'm putting this out there, and, well, you know, I'm telling them that, you know, you need to be a bit sustainable, you need to be a bit careful, but, well, it's the supply chain. So in your view, the regulation is also important because there is a whole supply chain to ensure it's playable?
As well, but it would be impossible to have norms for every single connectivity in the world. But when you have markets where security is fundamental, you need a point of reference, and this is where regulation can help. Okay. If you're buying this, you have, I don't know how many regulations for its safety, for the chemicals that go on it, for the ink that goes in it, and because in the internal market, this is how we've done things. When you come to the Internet of Things and the billions of products that will reach our homes, this is terra incognita. So it is important, and this is why we did this proposal for certification, etc. You need a point of reference, and their governments can help create a level playing field and for people to assume responsibility with the same level of credibility across the board. Okay. So I think that it helps with transparency and it helps with accountability. Because this is also very important. Yes, risks exist, but you need to have an accountability. So who is where in the supply chain that has the responsibility? And you need a framework for that. You cannot just leave it to the market to decide, well, for this one I'm responsible, for this one I'm not, because the insurance kicks in, so it is very relevant, and transparency, explaining to people.
Okay, so sorry to interrupt. So Despina is making reference to some of the letters. I just wanted to share an acronym that where we are very active in terms of research, which is called FATE. In the context of AI, it's called FATE algorithms, but more broadly, it's talked about FATE technology. And FATE means fair, accountable, transparent, and ethical technology, or algorithms. So these four letters are each in itself an entire research area with, like, you know, hundreds of people working on them. and we are some of them. So I completely share what she mentioned, but I wanted to mention the bigger picture of this acronym, which is very easy for people to remember, FATE, and which is increasingly being more studied, and there is increased activity for the past 5-7 years or so. Yeah.
Okay, just before, and I will open it to the floor for 10 minutes, and so if you've got questions, I'll take 3 really nice, concise ones, please. I just want to come back to you, Mary-Jo, because this is the important word here. Sorry, I'm very pointy. This is the important word here. I'll sit on my hand, which is the trust, which we know. It's you know, this is the word of the day. And when we look at this, so we talked about trust is partly educating and informing, and Despina saying I felt a lack of really that engagement. I talked about responsible R&I, engaging sort of at the heart of it, not just feedback, but where do you sort of work around this? Where do you see challenges and where you see positive? I mean, you rub shoulders with all sorts of people, stakeholders, parliamentarians, and so forth. How can we enhance that trust? Is there something beyond just informing? What is at the heart of it?
Well, I think if I compare it to Holland, where I live, I pointed out the big issue and a doll called Kayla in 2014 to the Dutch government, and I wanted to convince them to take it out of the stores. And I just showed them, you know, this is really, really insecure, the doll can eavesdrop, etc. You know what they said? Trust the manufacturer. And I just told them, now look, this is what happened. So even the government didn't want to take the doll out of the stores. And they just asked me, so do you really need that attention? And I was like, if you don't bring or take the doll out of the stores, I will draw any attention to get it out, but it took me 2 years. So I've
2 years?
Yeah, 2 years. So I've talked to everyone, consumers, marketers, manufacturers, legislators, whatever. They were all like, no,
so what? They don't want to create waves, they don't want to piss off industry, they don't want to get
it's all
the
about
public
trust.
upset?
And I think they prefer to trust a manufacturer over my investigation.
How dare they?
I
would not do that. Okay, so hold it there for a second. We've got about sort of 10 minutes, 7 or 8 minutes. Is there anyone, are you still with us before you get your hands on canapes and some really nice alcohol and some Hendrick's gin or a glass of water if you prefer? Is there anybody who has? I can continue to chat with these good ladies, but if there's some burning question, very short one, or comment, I'm happy to take. It's quite difficult to see from here. You're not. Yes, there's a lady there. I think there's a microphone is going to come to you just shortly. And if you can say who you are and keep it nice and concise, please, I'll be grateful. Do move so we can see you. Yes, thank you. Hello.
Hi. Cheryl Miller, I'm the founding director of the Digital Leadership Institute. And first, congratulations to Vodafone Institute for such an amazing lineup, including this panel, which begs the question, of course, the underrepresentation of women in this sector, and also that AI has a gender bias, and we have to be concerned about that and its biases in general, and what how much you're looking at that, and what it is that we can do as citizens to influence how this, the course of this discussion.
As citizens, or we're talking gender here, or citizens in general? Okay, well, just looking at the gender, I mean, just very nice and concise from the citizen point of view, how we can have something in there. And the gender bias was interesting because when I was talking to Lynette just before this, she was saying, you were talking about looking for experts. I need some experts because I need some help in these areas. And one of them is engineers. I need some female engineers. So there is that, there is certainly issues there. We know this in Europe. What would you like to say about that, sort of about AI and gender? Yeah.
Well, I don't know. In general, the first thing I want to point out is what the professor said, that we need more education anyway in the field. And I think that can solve a lot of the problem. Because, we have all these initiatives for women coming in technology, and this panel I don't think is representative of the reality. But it is very important that through training and education we change the way things are. That is the first and foremost.
So to support that, okay.
Okay, no, it's okay. You've got the prime position because you're next to me, but I'm just going to come first of all to Sadie.
I wanted to jump in because I've been recently thinking about the issue of bias in AI, actually. I find it extremely exciting. Just take you back. One of the reasons why we have such an issue with cybersecurity and volume of attacks is to do with asymmetry of threat. And that's really boring to most people, but the point about it is this, that you do not need to have huge amounts of resource to conduct an effective attack online.
You can do it from anywhere. I'll get to the point.
No,
I
okay.
promise you it's related to bias.
Go on.
So what it did is it leveled the playing field, and it enabled lots of people to get engaged in the malign supply chain. And that's related to bias because of this, because of course I care about gender bias, and we still have an issue, and I can attest to that in all of the environments that I work and exist in. But the thing about technology is it's such a leveler, we're going to see every single bias you can imagine inside this tech. It won't just be gender bias, it will be the entirety of humanity represented inside this technology. And so when I was talking about can we do more to ensure that as we innovate and create, we understand what we're introducing into these situations, I might have used the word risk or potential for harm or attack surface, but I see cybersecurity requirements moving forward. I see people saying to me, well, it's not just about keeping my stuff private. I want you to ensure that I'm having the right emotional response. Safety to me means that my psychology is safe, not just my heart keeps moving. And so I think cybersecurity as a discipline is going to broaden out, and I can see a future where somebody will say, can you reverse engineer for me the code that's inside the machine learning algorithm that tells me what kind of biases are present and driving the decision making, and then we can decide if that's acceptable according to our norms. I think it's a fascinating space. But remember, tech is such a leveler that these biases are not just the obvious buckets. They're right down to people's personal
But are we
biases.
keeping, I mean, just, so you say it's a leveler, and I understand that, and that's clear. Are we still somehow not, is it in its infancy? We're not clear it's a leveler, or it's not yet in schools in the way that, I did some stuff in social innovation last year. We were talking about there were all these coding schools that were really coding schools for single mums, coding schools for additional families, coding schools,
but looking at the future, it's all a platform. So when I learnt to code years ago, because I'm much older than I look, obviously, it's completely different to how...
The running notwithstanding.
It's completely different to how kids learn to code now. And if you try to write a website at the early stages of the internet, to then using tags, to then using tools to drag and drop, well, the future is not going to be coding. People are going to create tech without having to know anything about writing code. It's all, and this is happening at such a pace.
Exponential speed.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm only parking it not because I could have you all... You wanted to come in there. Was it something in an answer to the gender or the artificial intelligence or both?
Everything,
Okay.
So actually, we were just together in a session with one of the commissioners on gender, actually. So on the lack of women in technology, this is a topic actually that I've thought a lot about and I talk a lot about. And one of the corner pieces for me is education, which is extremely related also to the trust. We don't trust what we don't know. And the more we know, the more we trust. And it's also very connected to the T of transparency in the FATE acronym. So my perspective in the context of education, and I've been advocating for this for a few years now, is that we introduce a core subject called computational thinking in the same way as we teach math and how to read and the basic skills as a core subject. And computational thinking is much more than programming. I completely agree with you. It includes algorithms, which is extremely useful for life and which you need no matter what the level of abstraction is, which is the way of solving a problem using technology. You need to know how to structure the problem, how to figure out what comes first, what the dependencies are, and so forth. It includes programming, it includes hardware, it includes data. We've mentioned it. We live in a world of data. There is a tremendous lack of people in my field, in the field of data science and artificial intelligence, so we need to train more people. And it also includes networks. We also live in the world of networks. And the side effect of teaching everyone computational thinking is that we would degender technology, because no one thinks that knowing how to read is a boy's thing or is a girl's thing. So if everyone learns computational thinking from the age of 6, I don't think they would think that this is something...
That's critical what you say, because what I'm going to say, when you talk about education, when you talk about informing, these are all different ways. You talk about training, it's got to start there, because...
in the curriculum.
Because at the moment, there's this sense that, really going into those areas is less women there, or less interest, or more barriers, is because we need to get it in right at really entry level.
The age of 6.
Okay. Yes.
Can I also add something to Sadie? because I also think we need a baseline who to call an expert, because as in cybersecurity is the new gold, everyone calls them a cybersecurity expert or an artificial intelligence expert, and I think this is one of the main things that will cause more trouble, because everyone now is an expert. But if you have a look at what people are actually telling prime time in Holland, just last week, one woman, she totally, she everything that could have gone wrong, she did that. So I think this is also a big issue and a big problem. Who are the experts? What is the baseline? When do we call someone an expert?
Yeah. And when are they self-styled? And when they come to the University of the Moon, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, listen, I'm going to take a reading of the room because we're nearly at 8 o'clock. So am I okay to... Yeah, cut! I'm going, cut! So, last word, and I mean a last word. The big, literally a last word. So, where is the basis to maintain trust? If we're looking at, safety, security, prosperity, what is a last... Same thing that I said to them, when these good people get up tomorrow morning, what is the last 3 words, not 3 long sentences that you want to put out there? What should we be thinking about?
3 words related to...
or 1 sentence, but no more than 1.
All right, so my sentence, my words are, I believe in a world of prosperity through technological innovation.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I need 4 words. So I would say know who to trust.
Okay. Yep.
Cyber humanity mindfulness.
Okay.
So we're all zen now, right?
Yes, that's a good one. That's a whole day of chatting. Yes.
Trust by design.
Oh, that's a cool. Nice.
You need to do slogans for Nike, I think. That's a good one. Okay, trust. So, thank you very, very much. Thank you to all of you. Sorry I couldn't get to every single question, but I really appreciate you being here. As the lady said, what a fantastic lineup. A very, very warm round of applause, please, to these lovely panelists. Thank you. You may take your seats. I'd like to invite back with great enthusiasm the Chairman of the Vodafone Institute Advisory Board. We know who you are. I did your thing. Joachim Reiter. Could you please give him a very, very warm round of applause?
Fantastic presentation of the professor on the link with innovation, the risks, the role of the state, the role of government. We've had 3 fantastic innovations presentation. I, by the way, have a personal experience of the Hyperloop in my first job. When we had Hyperloop, we used it to send sandwiches when we had boring conferences across different rooms. And we had a final panel that started to tackle some of the big issues. And to be honest with you, this is going to be a continuous process. We're just at the verge of starting to really get to grips with the challenges that our society will face in the midst of what is by and large a fantastically exciting transformation. However, I think there are a number of things that I want to leave with you. I don't want to just wrap up being polite. I want to leave with you a few questions. One is the question around the trust aspects, the trust as a differentiator. One of the speakers in the last panel talked about trust, the security and safety as being, there's no conflict between regulation and innovation. In actual fact, it can be a matter of companies or different services providers to profile themselves. And against that, we have the professor who talks about actually the tragedy of commons in environment. So the question we have to ask ourselves is whether digital is the next tragedy of the commons, or actually whether the market mechanism, by profiling a positive differentiation by companies in the area of safety, security, trust, will matter. For me, there's no clear answer to the question, but we need to deal with it. The second question I have is the question around when we talk about the regulation versus innovation. I think we papered over the problem a little bit too easily in this discussion, and we will continue with it. Because what we have in Europe is a long-standing debate about risk-based approach to regulation versus precautionary principle. And the balance, the minute you get into the precautionary principle, you automatically start entering into the space of innovation by permission. And we have to ask ourselves, as societies, how far down that road do we want to go for digital? The answer may be very different for food compared to what it means for infrastructure or IoT. But the answer is still outstanding, and it's 2 thoughts that I want to leave with you as we finalize, and I won't keep you any longer for your drinks. Thank you very much for participating. It's been lovely. I'm very enthusiastic about this. Thank you to the moderator.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Thank you very much. It just is beholden to me just to say a couple of thank yous, very obviously importantly to our speakers and panelists for taking the time and trouble to come, for all your brilliant insights and expertise, which you had to condense into a ridiculously short amount when sort of a 3D printer size of thinking. Thank you very, very much to the Vodafone Institute and, of course, the BMW store for respectively organising and hosting this event. Thank you. Where are those fabulous violinists? They're about to play again, 3D Various. You're going to hear their music in just a moment. It's an absolute privilege to have you here. And, of course, most importantly, thank you so much for turning up, because without you doing that, there is no event, and it's not a given these days. So, can I just, one quick question? Yes, I'll do a photo call. Who is left with a nugget of something new in their head? Either a change of opinion, or something that they take away that they hadn't thought about, that they've heard, or you all just knew everything and are totally au fait with the entire... Okay, so that's not bad. So I'm really, really delighted. You can carry on chatting and networking now. You can just also, of course, follow the Vodafone Institute Twitter feed for all sorts of information and the website for updates. On that note, I can actually release you for snacks and drinks. I just need to ask my speakers and panelists to come to the stage for a last photo call. And the rest of you, please fly be free, go and enjoy yourselves, and get your hands on these good people if you want to have further conversation. Very, very safe trip home. Thank you very, very much.